Good afternoon, everyone. The meeting will now come to order. Hello, I'm Donna Sivigny, President of the Board of Education, and I would like to welcome you to the December 11th, 2019 board meeting. In keeping with the board's commitment to open communication with the community, this meeting is being streamed live on the CCPS website at www.carrollk12.org and broadcast live on Channel 21. We are also recording this meeting so that it can be accessed on demand on our website and broadcast throughout the month on Channel 21. We would like to remind you that because this is a live broadcast, anyone who participates in the meeting needs to use a microphone. Later in the meeting, time will be provided for citizens to address the board regarding topics of the agenda or other items of concern, except for items relating to personnel. Persons wishing to address the board should fill out a blue card located on the table near the entrance to this room and pass it to the superintendent or the board president prior to the conclusion of the scheduled citizen participation. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence and then the national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was really nice.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so for those of you who may not be able to see the screen entirely, but so that was a North Carroll Middle School string session.
Yes, outstanding job by our students.
Excellent. All right, so board members, we will move through the agenda now. So I need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
I'll second it.
Second by Dr. Dorsey. Board members, do we have any comments or additions or questions? No? All right, then. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. And we'll move on to the minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes that need to be approved. We'll take them one by one. So I need a motion to approve the unapproved delegation meeting minutes for November 6, 2019.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kiler. Board members, any questions or comments? No? Okay, I will say that since I was not present for this particular meeting, I will be abstaining from this vote. And with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? That passes by a vote of 4-0 with 1 abstention and student rep agreement. Okay, thank you. And we'll move on. I need a motion for to approve the unapproved board meeting minutes for November 13th, 2019.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kiler. Board members, any comments?
Which packet, I'm sorry, Donna? Which,
I'm sorry, these were the board meeting minutes for November 13th,
oh, not the work session, but our,
the actual board meeting
okay.
minutes.
Yes, I had one item, I think, to bring up with that one.
Okay.
Okay, on the second page, under citizen participation, for number 1, I think we were being encouraged, or folks were being encouraged to send in their vote for a teacher representative to serve on the Maryland State Board of Education.
For a teacher representative to the Maryland State Board of Education.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Board members, any other comments? I did have one minor change as well on page 10 under reports. The first paragraph under reports, the second to last sentence says, Ms. McCabe went on to report that we reallocate staffing to even our student enrollment when there's increased enrollment. I think that first student enrollment should say class size, that we reallocate staffing to even out class size when there's increased enrollment. Board members, anything else on these set of minutes? Okay. Then I will call for the vote on the minutes as amended. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. And now I need a motion to approve the unapproved November 13, 2019 draft 5-year budget plan work session meeting minutes. Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
I'll second it.
Second by Dr. Dorsey. Board members, comments? Before I call for the vote, I would like to check on the accuracy of one of the statements under the fund balance section, where it's in the first paragraph under fund balance. It says, items that fund this account include athletic fees, use of facilities fees, in-kind revenue, and so forth. Those don't actually fund the fund balance. I think this comment may have been taken out of context slightly.
Yeah, it would be other revenue, miscellaneous other revenue. The things that you're requesting, because I don't have the thing
Right.
in front of me, but that's what that's referring to.
Okay, so it shouldn't say items that fund this account. It should be items that fall under miscellaneous revenue
Correct.
include.
Correct.
Okay. So if we make, it was the first paragraph under fund balance.
Okay.
So items that fall under the miscellaneous revenue category include.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So board members, any other comments? No. Okay, then I will call for the vote on the minutes as amended. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the minutes, and we will move on to election of officers. And with that, I will hand the gavel over to Dr. Lockard to conduct the election of the president.
Thank you, Ms. Sivigny. Okay, here we go. So this is the annual meeting where we elect officers for the Board of Education. So at this point, I declare the office of the President of the Board of Education of Carroll County vacant, and will ask the Board for nominations for this office. Ms. Herbert.
I would like to nominate Donna Sivigny to continue as president. It's working very well, and I want to continue that way.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. Okay. Are there any other nominations? Seeing no other nomination, all those in favor of Donna Sivigny as President of the Board of Education, please indicate by raising your hand. And that passes unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Sivigny.
Thank you very much.
And now that we have a president, I will gladly hand that gavel back over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lockard, and thank you very much, board members. With that, I would like to declare the office of the Vice President of the Board of Education of Carroll County vacant and ask for nominations for this office. And in that regard, I would like to nominate Ms. Herbert for Vice President.
Thank you.
Do we have a second? A second. And seconded by Mr. Kiler. Are there any further nominations? No? Then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? It passes unanimously, and congratulations, Ms. Herbert.
Thank you. We make a good team.
I agree. All right, and with that, we will move on to the Carroll County Student Government Report. Okay.
Grace has her chorus concert tonight, so I will be giving the
okay.
report.
Well, I'm so glad that you're able to fill in for her.
So, hello board members. CCSJ has been very busy this past month, and we are excited to share all we have done with you. On November 15th and November 15th through 17th, 13 delegates from Carroll County attended the LEAD conference in D.C. as representatives of Carroll County. LEAD is a national leadership conference, and they were very lucky to be able to attend this conference with peers from across the nation. They all learned a lot to take back to their schools, and they really enjoyed collaborating with students from across the United States, and they hope to have an even bigger CCSJ presence next year. The following weekend, there were several student leaders from CCSJ attending the Maryland Association of Student Councils Fall Leadership Conference. This year, the event was at Perry Hall High School in Baltimore County. 4 CCSGA student leaders presented at the conference. It was a very exciting and educating day, and they were happy to represent Carroll County at the state meeting. On December 3rd, we held our staff meeting at Central Office. At this meeting, we had a special presentation from Commissioner Boucher. I could not remember how to pronounce it. Commissioner Boucher discussed the functions of local government and how it is structured differently from state government. Commissioner Boucher also did a Q&A with all of us, and we all learned a great deal about local government during this short time, and we are looking forward to working with Commissioner Boucher during our February General Assembly. We planned another great GA with a theme of holiday helpers, and overall the meeting was very productive and well attended. As for our December General Assembly, it will be held on Friday, December 13th from 9 to 1 at Francis Scott Key High School. At this general holiday helper themed General Assembly, we will be running service-based workshops for middle and high school student leaders, including making Project Linus blankets for Carroll County Hospital's pediatric unit. We will also be announcing the winner of our countywide clothing drive that CCSGA hosted. All of the clothing donated will be given to CCPS Student Services to be given directly to CCPS students in need. This will be an exciting and activity-packed day, and we'd love to have you come stop by and see the leadership in action. Thank you so much for giving me the time to update you all, and have a great evening and a wonderful holiday.
Thank you so much, Mr. Klingenberg. All right, and with that, we will move on to public participation. Ms. Herbert.
I don't think we have any blue cards.
Do we have any blue cards in the room this evening, or anyone who would like to turn in a blue card to speak?
Well, we'll
No?
wait till the next round.
Okay, well then we'll check back in at the second set of public participation, and we won't
That's a first.
commence with reading all of the guidelines if. All right,
Here she
so
comes.
Ms. McCulloh.
Ready. Good evening, Superintendent Lockard, members of the Board of Education, and Commissioner Weaver. Congratulations on the election. I'm Teresa McCulloh, President of the Carroll County Education Association, who represents the dedicated, hardworking teachers, counselors, RNs, speech and language providers, OTs, PTs, who work diligently delivering quality instruction daily. The Walk a Day in My Shoes, that teacher's shadow activity, is currently taking place and runs through December 19th, but I will expand upon that activity next month. This evening's report is a top 10 CCEA wish list for 2020. Some serious, some funny. Number 10, a Keurig machine in every classroom. 9, continued line of open communication between CCPS and CCEA. 8, no technology burps. 7, all educators take their 30-minute duty-free lunch. 6, free-flowing copies, meaning jamless copiers. 5, a supportive, respectful climate in all schools. 4, the use of a 2-story parking garage next to central office, like out there or over there or up there.
I agree.
3, a special educator added to every school and more counselors continuing to care for kids and in some cases adults. Number 2, all Board of Education meetings adjourning at 7 p.m.
I don't know if we can do that.
Wish list. And number 1, you knew this was coming, a significant salary increase and improved contract language. But have a wonderful holiday season filled with love, laughter, and lots of memories, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCulloh. Ms. Deal?
I get to smile. I'm happy. Good evening, Dr. Lockard, board members, Commissioner Weaver. My name is Diane Deal, and I'm the president of CASE, representing secretary, clerical, LPNs, and all instructional assistants. I am pleased to announce that after 13 months and 25 hours of mediation, CASE has ratified our negotiation agreement for this school year. The vote was unanimous. We are looking forward to starting negotiations for this school year. Now the contract comes to you to ratify this evening. CASE is pleased with the changes in our new contract. The contract provides respect to our hardworking education support professionals, which they earn for all the work they do for our students. CASE thinks these changes are a step in the right direction of a contract that will recruit and retain highly qualified employees the board is striving for through their Pillar 3 of the strategic plan. The 350-plus new bargaining unit positions that we agreed would finally be added to CASE's unit will better meet the needs of the students in Carroll County Public Schools. I'm wishing each and every one of you a very safe and happy and relaxing holiday season, and Happy New Year to you. Thank you.
Same to you, Ms. Deal. Thank you very much. Are there any other employee groups who would wish to speak? No? Okay, then we will move on to board member and superintendent updates. Board members, who'd like to go first? Ms. Herbert.
All right. Here we go. It's time to be thankful. The holidays will soon be here, and everyone in this room has a lot to be thankful for. I want to thank all the employees for making the Carroll County Public School System one of the best. I want to thank our students for making us proud. I want to thank our parents, guardians, friends, and family for supporting us throughout the year. And finally, I want to thank our community partners, nonprofits, business partners, and state and local partners. We cannot meet our needs in the strategic plan without you. A special congratulations goes to, of course, Hampstead Elementary for being named one of the 2019 Blue Ribbon Schools. Without all of you, none of this would have been possible. Relationships are so important. And I have to tell you a little sidebar of what happened yesterday. I went on the ground floor, went up to the first floor, and I checked out all the Christmas trees. And then a group of us ladies that I didn't know got on the elevator with me, and all of a sudden, we all said hi, and the one girl goes, "Hi, Miss Herbert, you taught me phys ed at North Carroll." I loved it. She was the principal at Jacksonville High School in Baltimore County. So I was so proud of another North Carroll graduate. So that was fun, because you know I always have some little thing to say. So congratulations, Debbie Miller. So it was hilarious. We've accomplished so much this year. We could have gone forward without your hard work and your dedication. And I want to tell you a special thing that happened. CCPS really does go the extra mile, and I really want to give out a special thank you to the staff of Manchester Valley for making a wish come true. Manchester Valley received an email from the Dove House right before Thanksgiving, and that is a hospice care facility in Westminster several weeks ago. A mother just wanted to see her daughter graduate before she passed. Christy Troutman from Manchester Valley did an absolutely wonderful job. I asked Mr. Guerrero, who gets all this credit, and he gave that to her because she is the academic facilitator. The graduation went off without a hitch the day before Thanksgiving. There was not a dry eye in the place. Mr. King was there. And I want to thank everyone who did attend. There was a very large group there. And the family was so appreciative. So that gives us a star because of the extra things that we do and our relationships with our people. And this is a time for friends and family to spend with one another and appreciate their love and kindness. It will be different this year. Of course, my mom's not going to be there. And I know she'll be watching it. But so make sure you enjoy yourselves with your families at this time because you just don't know when you're not going to have fun. And happy holidays, happy New Year to each and every one of you. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your hard work and your dedication to the Carroll County Public School System. And I really do mean that. We have made great strides this year, and I never thought we could entertain so many new policies. And I want to thank you, and I need to shut my mouth because I'm over my 3 minutes.
Right. Thank you, Ms.
Oh, you're
Herbert.
welcome.
All right, Mr. Kiler?
And I'll just skim quickly, and it'll be in minutes. But May legislative meeting, East Middle, construction planning committees. That committee's been doing great. Is it on? That committee's been doing great, and probably I think we might have to add a meeting, but it's been very positive conversation and a lot of information. I'll mention, not as touchy-feely as Ms. Herbert, but I did go to the Jacob Armacost fundraiser in Arcadia, and it's just so great to see so many people supporting a family that's gone through so much. I cannot believe how old Jacob is now, and how his mom and sisters and everybody have done so much for him and are so positive. The Old North Carroll High School held the Manchester Holiday Tournament. I know I mentioned wrestling a fair amount, but to me, that day there was 350 wrestlers in that building from 9 a.m. to 4. The same time, I know some others, not quite that big, maybe 3 others going on in the state, but to me, when we can take a Sunday like that and use one of the schools, or in this case, one of the old schools, and keep that many kids doing something positive, and of course they've got to practice for it. And like I say, I mention this because that's something I'm involved with, but I don't care if it's band or drama or whatever, the extracurriculars and keeping these younger kids doing stuff and setting goals, to me it's just amazing. And I give credit to the people that make it happen. And we actually have another board member that's now a wrestling mom. Work sessions, we attended, which I thought were very positive. A town hall, which was very positive. We've gotten some great comments and some great discussions, I think. And got to witness the governor to honor Hampstead Elementary at the Blue Ribbon School. And as I understand it, moving forward, that puts them eligible to be considered for a national. So that's just so awesome. And it's a testament to the entire school system, not just that building and those people, but it takes it all to make it work. Went to the holiday lunch today at Crossroad Gateway, and those kids were amazing today, and the things they said and did, and one of them met me at the front door and took me back. Maybe they just realized you other guys could find your way around, I couldn't, but he was such a gentleman. It was so nice.
He needs help.
And then, because it's the holiday season and you got so much stuff going on, I've had a number of opportunities to see our state delegation and a lot of the commissioners. And I just think it's amazing, but justified. They are always very positive about the Carroll County school system, and they make they take great effort to comment, whether they're talking about state funding or whatever, that, you know, we've done positive things with the money we've gotten, and we've done, or should say you guys have done some great things with it. And I just think it's so nice. You see the governor give an award to one of our schools, and then when I hear these guys talk, like I say, they are always so positive about our school system, and it's such a compliment. And I always tell them, I've only been here a year, so I can't hurt it yet, so keep being positive. And lastly, I still can't be as touchy-feely as Marcia, but I do appreciate the staff, everything going on. It's been a great year. I can't believe it's been a year already. Superintendent, the 4 ladies that tell me what to do but work with me. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kiler. Ms. Battaglia?
So I attended several different events around the county and all the different schools and different activities for the kids. One I really enjoyed was the FFA dinner at Westminster High School, seeing what all of our FFAs from our high schools do. And from what I understood, we're one of the only counties in the state of Maryland that have an FFA in every single high school. So I think that's an incredible accomplishment that we have here in this county, and it's a true testament to what we have to offer for our children and what they can do with that later in life. Different holiday lunches, so I'm hoping maybe I'll gain 10 pounds by the time New Year comes around. That'd be great. And I just, I want to thank everybody for everything that they've done this past year. You know, there's so much that goes on in our schools, and there's so much that everyone does, and they don't get the thanks that they deserve. So thank you for everybody. I mean, everything that they do, something small, something large, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. You know, we have a great system, we have great kids, and we have a wonderful community. So thank you for everybody, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Dorsey?
Okay, I just have a couple of items that I will mention. In addition to our work sessions, I too had attended the town hall meeting at South Carroll just the other night. And again, we certainly thank the staff and the parents, the community, for engaging in the thoughtful dialogue concerning the needs of our school system. So again, that sort of finished our round of town meetings, and I just thought that that was, again, a very worthwhile session for us to attend. I too attended the Maryland Blue Ribbon School announcement and celebration in Annapolis the other day, and certainly congratulate Ms. Moore, the staff, students, community of Hampstead Elementary for this excellent recognition. And as it's been said, it certainly takes all of us working together. So with everyone who has supported teaching and learning, I think we've all played a part in that accomplishment and can all celebrate along with the Hampstead staff. So I think it's just a tremendous recognition. I too have attended some of these holiday dinners and luncheons and seen a few of you at some of these sessions, and we spend a lot of time enjoying the fine food and conversations that we can engage in. And certainly I'm thankful to the Career and Tech Center students and staff who were involved in putting together the holiday luncheon that they served the other day. And it was very touching to attend the Crossroads Gateway luncheon today. And I think one of the highlights, in addition to the food, certainly was having the students and interacting with them, and to hear the one student who spoke before the group share how valuable the staff and the setting at Crossroads Gateway is to him. It was just very touching. You know, he just said he's able to certainly thrive in the small classroom setting, and he was one of the most mannerly students that we've been around in a while. I mean, he not only talked and shared his experiences, but in fact, he sat right beside me as we were having the meal, and was very easily engaged in conversation. He offered to take my plate and all at the end, and then I noticed not only was he helping to clear the table where we were seated, but he walked around and he cleared the tables or the plates at all the other tables as well. So again, just kudos to the caring staff members that we have at Crossroads Gateway, because you can just really feel that it's making a difference to our students. And I really liked how that student began his presentation this morning. He was pretty much saying that some people think that the school is for bad kids. That's a myth. It's not for bad kids. It's for kids who certainly thrive in a different setting. So again, many thanks to that staff for providing the setting for the students. And as it's already been said, we certainly have a lot to be proud of in Carroll County. So my kudos and thanks to everyone involved here in our Carroll County public school system, and my wishes as well for a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. And I'll just add that a couple of things that I was able to attend this month were the Carroll Connections meeting with the District 5 delegation. I think that was really an excellent opportunity to spend a little bit more face time with our delegation and help them understand what our priorities are to take to Annapolis this year, and appreciate the open dialogue that they're always willing to have with us. Was also able to catch the second half of the town hall meeting at South Carroll the other evening, so I was very thankful to hear the open dialogue and discussions that folks were having, both with employees, educators, community members. It was just a really good forum. I think they've all been really good forums this past year, and appreciate the open dialogue and feedback that we're getting from the community. We've also, I want to make note of the fact that we had several work sessions this past month, and I think that they were all very well orchestrated. I really appreciate the time and effort and thoughtful options and suggestions that staff has put into those work sessions. So, you know, with the 5-year budget plan, all of the work and preparation that went into that, and the things that staff brought to us, I think that was a very productive work session, and I'm excited to share that with the commissioners tomorrow at the meeting, as well as the out-of-district attendance policy. The staff, the options that were brought to the table, it was just very well thought out, and I appreciate the discussion that board members had and the consensus that we were able to come to there. So, and I really loved the fact that we had principals there providing their insight and adding a different angle to the story that we may not always hear. So I really like the way that you've been structuring those. So thank you, Dr. Lockard, and thank you, staff, for making those work sessions so productive. And then lastly, I would like to congratulate our 3 board members for their first full year of service. I hope that it was everything that you dreamed it would be. And then some. But I would like to say that I really do appreciate this board. I think we have a great board. Even though we may not agree on every issue, I think that we've been really great and open about having some of the tough discussions, and really working together to come to consensus and something that we can all live with. And I think we had a phenomenal year. There were so many things that we made great progress on, and so I just want to thank you all for your dedication and the effort that you've put in this past year. And I also want to thank you for the honor and privilege of having served as your president for a year, and the honor and privilege for getting to continue in that role for another year. So thank you all very much. I know that we have a lot of holiday events coming up, so the students are going to be putting on choral concerts and band concerts and all kinds of holiday luncheons and everything, so I hope everyone gets into the holiday spirit, that we celebrate the kids for how talented they are, because, man, they are talented, and it's fun every day to go see our kids and what they can accomplish. And I hope that everyone gets to spend time with their loved ones, and my holiday wish for you all is that you have all the love your hearts can hold. So thank you for a great year. And with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Lockard.
Thank you, Ms. Sivigny. Okay, a couple of accolades here. I want to echo the comments that we've heard regarding Hampstead Elementary School being named a Maryland Blue Ribbon School by the Maryland State Department of Education. I couldn't be more proud. Many of us got to attend a very special ceremony. in Annapolis with the governor and the state superintendent. For those of you who don't know, this is a national and state program that recognizes elementary, middle, and high schools for high performance and/or significant improvement in student achievement. Hampstead was honored as an exemplary, high-performing school, which places them in the top 15% of all schools in Maryland. A very well-deserved honor that could not have been achieved without the combined work of students, staff, families, and the community there in Hampstead, and creating what truly is an outstanding, welcoming school where students are learning and thriving. So we congratulate Principal Arlene Moore and the entire Hampstead Elementary School community for this great recognition. Also want to congratulate Katie Hockstead, a math teacher at Manchester Valley High School. Katie is featured this month in the December Digital Learning Showcase by the Maryland Society of Educational Technology. Each month, the showcase highlights an educator who utilizes technology in a classroom or in a school. Katie utilizes the flipped classroom model. If you remember, we had a presentation here regarding that. And she's developed video resources and websites linked to documents that she provides her students and parents for at-home learning, which, as we know in the flipped model, allows more in-class time to work with students on enriching their understanding on whatever the topics or content might be. So congratulations, Katie, for that statewide recognition. Also, I'd like to congratulate our Tech Center students who were winners in 2 categories in the I Built This video contest, sponsored by the National Center for Construction Education and Research and Build Your Future. I got a chance to check out their videos. They did an awesome job. We have those online on our website, I believe. So if you haven't seen them, check them out. Jordan Stambaugh and Gavin Rouse from the welding program won in the group secondary category for a video which documented their project. They were creating a decoration above their classroom door. It's pretty cool and pretty involved, so check out the video. I'll leave it at that. Joey Arrington from the carpentry program was the winner in the individual secondary category for his video, in which he showed how he made easels for the Tech Center's fashion shows. So again, congratulations to those students. As you may have read about or heard about, last week Carroll County Public Schools received the Maryland School Report Cards for the 2018-19 school year. The state calculates the percent of points each school earns on all measures and then converts them, that number to a star rating used on a 1 to 5 point star rating scale. Many of those report card measures we've already been aware of and reported on. They include academic performance, academic growth, English language proficiency, chronic absenteeism, and well-rounded curriculum. Some new measures to the report card this year included a student and staff climate survey and the state science assessment in grades 5 and 8. New next year will be a social studies assessment. So the report card will continue to add criteria here this year and next year. And while we did have some schools move in rankings up and down, some from 5 to 4 in overall ratings, Carroll County Public Schools' overall performance still ranks in the top 4 of all school systems in the state of Maryland when we look at average points earned by school and average percentile performance of schools, with 92% of the schools in Carroll County achieving 4 or 5 stars. 4 elementary, 3 middle, and 3 high schools rank above the 85th percentile, which is really impressive. We plan on providing the board and our public a broad overview of the latest MSDE report card at our January Board of Education meeting, and that's the next Pillar 1 update. And believe it or not, that's pretty quick when we return from the break. It's the 8th of January, so we won't even be back really a full week before we're at the next board meeting. There are areas that we need to improve with the Maryland report card, and I believe we're focused on the right things in our strategic plan as it relates to those areas of improvement. We're going to highlight that at the January meeting as well. Our directors are busy working with principals and our principals with school improvement teams to cull the latest data and continue to work toward improvement. Our Performance Academy teams from each school will also be reconvening in January, taking a deep dive into the data as we familiarize our teams with tools like PowerSchool, which you'll hear a little bit about later from Mr. Anderson, that can help them make real-time decisions about meeting students' needs throughout the year. So I just wanted to make sure I gave you a quick update, and that work is ongoing. Like I said, we get a lot of this information throughout the course of the year, but I wanted to report on the report card and give a little bit more about that as we just received that. And finally, like everybody else, I wish all of you, all of our schools and our school communities, a safe, happy, relaxing, enjoyable holiday and a great break, and looking forward to a fantastic 2020.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Lockard. With that, we'll move on to Section 4, presentations. And first up is the Strategic Plan Pillar 4 update. Dr. Lockard?
All right, thank you. So December is the month when we provide an update on Pillar 4 of our strategic plan. Mr. O'Neill is here with staff and the team to provide an update on our progress and the outlook for the remainder of the year. So, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Dr. Lockard. Good evening, members of the board. Can you think of a better way to end a year than with a Pillar 4 progress update? Because we can't. We have a blockbuster team here tonight to present our progress on part of Pillar 4. We have Mr. Duane Williams, Supervisor of Security and Emergency Management, Mr. Mike Hardesty, Director of Transportation, Mr. Ray Prokop, Director of Facilities Management, and Ms. Amy Jagoda, our Mental Health Coordinator under the Safe to Learn Act. And also with us, not at the table, but kind enough to be here tonight, Major Rich Hart from the, Major Hart serves sort of two roles relative to us in CCPS. He's on the Sheriff's Command, but he also is the acting chair, or the chair for this year of your Security Advisory Council meeting. And Major Hart was kind enough to take some time out to be here tonight. When we get to one of the performance target updates, there's a connection to an initiative we're working on with Sheriff DeWeese. And so Major Hart was nice enough to say he'll come by, and if you had specific questions, he's free to help answer them. And he's the person we all look up to, even me. So with that, we'll try to move briskly through Pillar 4 update, and then stop wherever you have questions or answer any questions at the end, but we'll try to get through a lot of things as quick as possible. We're using the template that Mr. Anderson was kind enough to establish for us back with the Pillar 1 update at the start of the year, which apparently includes a quote. It's not easy to find a pithy quote on school security, but I want to commend Mr. Williams for coming up with one that we thought captured sort of the broader context of all the security things that take place in our schools. These are the objectives from your strategic plan, so these are just sort of reminders as to what's in the plan. I'm not going to go through each of those. For each of these updates that we move through, we try to provide you a series of data points that are part of measuring the progress, and so there's a list of some of the data elements that we have used as part of this update. Just for your sake and anyone in the public who might see this later, the MCSS acronym is the Maryland Center for School Safety. I think all the other acronyms are spelled out later in the report itself, or else you know what they mean. But MCSS is the Maryland Center for School Safety. Real quick, these are the performance targets from your strategic plan, and tonight we intend to address Focus Area 1 and Focus Area 2 and save Focus Area 3 for the May timeline of the Pillar 4 update. So this deals with this Focus Area 1 and then also Focus Area 2. And with that, I'm going to click ahead, and the folks at the table are going to take over and let you know where we stand relative to our success or completion of each of the measures.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Lockard. As you should be well aware, the Safe to Learn Act was a major point of Pillar 4, and that a lot of people have focused on the adequate law enforcement coverage requirement through that. But we all know that there was a lot of different tenets within that law, a lot of different requirements, that some of which are still being followed through at the Maryland Center for School Safety, with some regulations that are still being developed. Part of that is the mental health side and the threat assessment side. So we have Ms. Amy Jagoda, and I'll mess her title up. We quickly refer to her as our mental health coordinator, but she is the coordinator of mental health and student services.
Very good, yes.
It's a mouthful. So I'm going to let her kind of handle this slide here, and then I'll pick it back up right after.
Sure. So first and foremost, we revised our policy ADD for threats, violent acts, and weapons prohibited. That policy and the related regulations are in alignment with the Maryland Model Policy for Behavioral Threat Assessment as outlined in the Safe to Learn Act, so we took care of that this summer. We've established our threat management team. Again, that's also from the Safe to Learn Act and the Maryland Model Policy for Behavioral Threat Assessment. So that's a multidisciplinary team that includes not just law enforcement, but individuals with knowledge of instruction, administration, mental health, PPWs are represented, So really, we have a good team together to be able to address any of the needs that we may need to. Special education and human resources are also represented if threats are related to those specific areas. As I said, I lead that team. We have protocols in place for identification, assessment, and intervention. A big part of my role is to stay in close communication with our PPWs, who are generally our case managers, for situations that involve students, to make sure we have supports in place to support the student and anyone else that might be impacted. And just following up with them to see if additional assessments are needed, counseling supports, what have you. So that's a really important thing that we have in place. We have ongoing training to staff. We have a large training coming up in January that we've used grant funding for out of the Safe Schools grant. We've applied for that every year, so in our new funding, we continue to ask for money for trainings. So that's something we have coming up. Our recent 2018 grant we applied for, we had a large group of people go for behavioral threat assessment training with the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals, which is kind of like the gold standard group for that. So we had our threat management team members, our law enforcement and school administrators and psychologists, key individuals we targeted for that training. And then, Mr. Williams, I'll let you kind of speak to some of your pieces with that.
Okay. Thank you. And Amy's done an outstanding job in her role, I just have to say that. So in addition with the Safe Schools grant, we've outfitted 5 regional reunification sites with equipment to be able to conduct a parent-student reunification. We've provided ICS training, emergency operations plans, or critical incident plan training, in addition to reunification training for school administrators and a number of other employees, and developed a central office reunification team through the use of some of those funds. We've also supplemented some of the Sheriff's Office training for their SROs. They didn't have funding for all the required training that was within the law, so we've assisted them with some of that training as well as some of their professional development training. We have also, in the upcoming year, we're going to be using it for additional training and purchasing some additional equipment for the schools, for go bags for each individual school. And then part of that was also a cloud-based video case management software that hopefully will expedite and make the process of handling video footage and video evidence more secure. So if we can, thank you, John. So in addition to that, the law required school safety evaluations at all 40 schools that had to be done by June 15th. We contracted with the Falston Group to do those evaluations, which they did within the timelines. The results were shared with the school principals, and also the results were shared with the Security Advisory Council at our most recent meeting. I will say that Rob Weinhold and the Falston Group has done a number of independent assessments for us over the course of the last several years. There were a number of recommendations that they made, but I will say that he finished by saying that we are still continuing to move forward and make improvements. So he's seen us from 2013 on, so he has a real good gauge of where we started out several years ago and where we are now. So that is the benefit of using his group for these types of assessments. They also provided a summary that was required to the center of those assessments. There's a number of capital improvements that can be made, but one of the things that we focused on with the grant that we received through this act, through the IAC, is to continue to focus on bidirectional amplifiers, which is near and dear to Major Hart's heart, no pun intended, because that directly impacts his staff and their ability to communicate within the schools. It also impacts our ability for school administrators to communicate on the 800 megahertz radio system. We continued with the law enforcement adequate coverage plans that, as required by law, was submitted to the center. Obviously, we won't go into detail on that because of security reasons. School resource officer training and school security assistant training continued through the summer. All school resource officers have attended the mandatory training required by the center, and the vast majority of our school security assistants, formerly known as hall monitors, have attended the training. We're working with the center to get some additional training out to finish up that group. They did not provide any more training sessions after that initial one in August or at the end of July in this region. I just communicated with them earlier this week, and we believe that we probably can finish that up in March or February, but they're not making any promises on that one. And that would take us into, I believe, slide 8. So to kind of lead into what Mr. Hardesty is going to talk about with buses, I think it's important to kind of take us back to where we started with this. And so in 2013, Rob Weinhold's organization, the Falston Group, did an assessment, and one of the recommendations out of that assessment was active GPS and bus communication was a noted gap within the assessment. We know that the ability to locate real-time and communicate redirect buses remains an issue and a concern for us, and it is integral in managing critical incidents. Buses are coming and going all day, especially to high schools because of career and tech and different programs. So it's important that we can contact them, we can know where they're at to manage these. It's also important to note that in February 2018, your SAC, your Security Advisory Council, there was a motion, and it was unanimously approved to make GPS and bus emergency communication 2 priorities relating to transportation. And then specifically in the most recent charge for the Security Advisory Council, communication, namely bus communication and active GPS or live fleet tracking, remained a charge of the Security Advisory Council. And then lastly, it's important to note that in our most recent functional exercise that we had for reunification, we did have an inject where we had the issue with locating and communicating with a bus. And as a result of that, again, that became an action item on the after-action report from that exercise. So it still remains an issue for us within the system that Mike's going to talk about, and it also is obviously one of the a part of the pillar, a part of Pillar 4. Mike?
Mike, and I apologize if you were going to get to it. The communication with them, that's primarily cell phones?
Yes, sir.
So how many dead areas do we have in the county? I mean, that's got to be a problem, doesn't it?
It's a major problem, and of course it's against the law for bus drivers to answer their phones while they're driving. So we can't have immediate communication with drivers. They have to pull their bus over in a safe location in order to answer the phone.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just had a parent call me and they tried to get the bus and the bus driver wouldn't answer right away, and I'm like, how can he? But thank you.
Yeah, we really would discourage parents from calling bus drivers, especially. I see. Okay.
You know, but I'm like.
It's a major problem, so we do still continue to rely on cell phones, which is subject to missed calls and other areas, dead spots, as you say. A driver may have forgotten to turn the phone on, may have left the phone back at the shop, the bus lot. The main issue, too, though, is that we're only able to communicate with one bus at a time that way. So if we have a major issue going on at a school or a weather incident in a certain part of the county, we can't communicate effectively with groups of buses. So we primarily would have to call bus contractors that have those buses in those areas, ask them to contact their drivers by cell phone. It's a very inefficient and ineffective system with cell phones. So we continue to look at alternatives, and we hope to bring forward this spring a recommendation to improve our communication capability, either through radios. We've also looked as two board members are probably aware from a prior submission, a tablet technology that could possibly be used with a push-to-talk radio system. But we continue to look at those options and hope to bring forward by this spring a recommendation to improve our communication capability. We also are very, very concerned about our lack of live real-time GPS. We know where the buses were and can find out where they were by pulling the hard drive from our cameras. Our buses are 100% equipped with internal cameras, and they do record up to about 2 weeks' worth of prior tracking where the buses were. So if we have an incident that we need to find out where that bus was, we can go pull the hard drive. But that we do not have real-time information regarding GPS. And I do have just jotted down some of the issues that come up for us without having real-time GPS. Obviously, aside from the safety and security issue of knowing where the buses are, and that really is highlighted during periods of inclement weather where we have to dismiss early. And we've had incidents where buses are out on the road till as late as 7 o'clock at night. We're in our office not sure if all the buses have returned to their bus lots. You know, it's very helpful it would be very helpful to have live GPS and see where those buses actually are at any given point in time. We do not have an adequate system to alert parents of late buses. Our procedure right now is for bus drivers to contact our office when a bus is running 15 minutes or more late. And then we notify the school. And sometimes that works, and we also still notify WTTR radio, and they would broadcast late buses. It's very, in this day and age, with parents having smartphones, with Uber and whatnot, it's really an inadequate system to notify parents of late buses. And buses may be late for the first tier, the high school, but by the time we get to the third tier school, they've made up that time and it's no longer late. We can't expect the driver to keep calling our office and updating us as to how late they're going to be. So that's a major issue, not having the ability to give parents adequate information on where the bus is if it is running late. Lost children, we call them lost children. This is when a parent would call and say, my child did not arrive home. And sometimes it's very important for us to know, did the bus already go past the bus stop? Is it still on its route and not there yet? So we can assist in some rare cases where we have to involve the police. We can notify the police where the bus currently is, where it was, and then we can track down the student. Thankfully, we've never lost a student, but there are panicky times, obviously, mostly with the parent, the school staff, and our office, until we find the student. Route verification, as you are aware, we compensate our bus contractors based on time and miles. We have a routing system, a computer routing system that designs the route. However, GPS would help us verify that the route time and miles is accurate. We have many calls that come in from parents that say the bus never came, the bus is consistently running late, my child missed the bus. We would be able to tell immediately with live GPS where the bus is, tell the parent whether it was early, whether it was late, whether it was on time. So we do not have that ability right now without, as I said, going back and pulling a hard drive to find out where the bus was, or calling the bus and find out whether they missed the bus stop. Finally, we're hoping to link up the GPS with our routing system with possible tablets. We still are interested in tablet technology that would provide navigation and route directions for drivers. So you can imagine a new driver or a sub-driver that's being asked to drive a route that they've never driven before, holding a manifest, a route direction manifest in their hand, trying to navigate the route. So, that would definitely be enhanced by having a navigation system through tablet technology to assist the driver with lefts and rights in making the route.
I do have a question, excuse me.
Yes, sure.
I know, I think it was 2 years ago, Mr. Guthrie did a $25,000 deal with Synovia.
Yes.
And personally, I did not like that system, and the reason I didn't like it was, number one, the price tag, and number two, nobody could prove or tell us they could not, their service was not A-plus service. Every time bus contractors would call me, they would send me articles of, they are not keeping up their service. This Board of Education has dropped Synovia. But we never, ever heard any results of, and I know everything's gone now, so what actually did you find out? I mean, nobody ever reported us the ending on that.
Well, the pilot was very successful in terms, especially in terms of the parent notification. Here comes the bus, it was called. I think about 30% of the parents, and this was, the pilot was primarily in the northeast area of the county.
That's correct.
So Manchester Valley High and all the feeder schools into Manchester Valley High. About 30% of the parents in that area signed up for the Here Comes the Bus app. So that was very successful. In fact, many parents were quite upset when the pilot ended and they no longer had that service. The tablet technology was also successful. So there's another school system that did go forward and purchase that product, and they have implemented it, and it's my understanding that it is working well. I would say from our standpoint, for the 25, well, actually it was something like 25 different buses that had the pilot on it, that it was successful.
Okay, I was just wondering, and the other thing is, I don't have my thing on, but it's all right. Then they took those tablets out. Now, do you have to repair those holes in the bus and things like that?
Yes, and
has that been done?
Yes, it has been.
Okay.
Yes,
all
it
right.
has been.
I just knew that. I knew you had to drill into those to them and that kind
Yes,
of.
we worked with the vendor, and they were very good at coming back and taking care
So
of it.
you're going to present us with something else in 2020?
We're going to have a recommendation regarding communication.
Okay.
Tablets may be part of that. It may just be a radio system.
Yeah,
so we're still looking at
okay.
options.
I just know that there was a lot of information out there about service from that.
So you did mention cost as, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to ask because you had said something about the radio system. Was there a time that our buses had like a CB radio or a two-way system?
When we had a fleet of special needs buses, those buses were equipped with radios and with a monitoring radio network in our office, yes. But it was just at some point, I think we had 30-some buses in the fleet that just served the special needs population. We did have radios at that time.
Okay.
Just for those buses, not contract buses.
Now, with the 800 megahertz system, is there a way that we could, I mean, I don't know how much it would cost to do, but to have a channel added that the school's buses would have a two-way system and then transportation would have access to that?
Yes, that's what we're looking at. So it would be communication from us to the bus, and then the contractor would have the ability to talk to their specific buses, not the entire fleet, but contractor to their specific bus.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I would be more comfortable with a two-way system than a tablet system because, what if something happens in an event where satellite's not working? Or, I mean, to me, the two-way megahertz system would be so much better when you can hit tower to tower.
There's no question that that is a much more reliable system. It's also much more costly. So
might be beneficial in the long run.
That's why we were, looking at other options, trying to do as much as we could with the least amount of funding necessary. But the cost of the prior system, Ms. Herbert, as you mentioned, was a major concern. And we do have some rather, I think, exciting news that we've been approached by two companies, camera companies, that are proposing to put external cameras on our school buses that would catch flyby violators. The revenue from that would be sufficient to fund all of the equipment that would go on the buses, and they're proposing to equip our entire fleet of 326 buses. So it would cover all of the costs associated with installing the cameras, the purchase of the cameras, the maintenance of the cameras, and there would be revenue share with the county in some fashion that would then enable us to acquire GPS services through either Zonar, one of the leading GPS providers, or another company, free of charge. So We've begun discussions with Sheriff DeWeese, and Major Hart is here. They are very much in favor of this and support this concept. So we're very excited about it. You probably would be surprised to hear that across the state, each April, one day in April every year, each county in Maryland participates in a national survey. It's called a flyby survey, to determine from drivers how many drivers actually pass the red flashing lights of the school bus on this specific day. We've done this. We have done 9 years of this, and the average for that one day in April is 112 flybys in Carroll County. And when you multiply that by 180 school days, that's a lot of flybys. And the current assessed value for a ticket that there is a county, Montgomery County, has been very successful with this flyby venture at $250 a citation. So it's a sizable amount of money that Montgomery County has recognized, and the vendors are seeing that as an opportunity, and other counties have approached us, have approached other Maryland counties about this concept.
Well, I was just wondering about the Synovia system, and because we didn't hear anything else from that, but I do understand about the flybys, because on Route 482, where I have that farmhouse, the state police actually even sat there in my driveway, and it got to a point where my niece and nephew couldn't even get on the bus. And now they have a different route, and they go up to the church and turn around, and everybody gets off on the correct side. But it is it's very scary.
Yes.
And it's, and somebody will get hurt. But that's awesome. But I just was curious about where we were with Synovia and the ending or beginning or what's going on. But sounds like we're moving
I think
forward.
we've moved on from that.
Okay, that's fine, because
Just a question, that revenue from tickets or whatever, that doesn't go directly to the county, I don't think. That's...
Well, that would be determined how that would be shared. The first step is there would have to be an ordinance issued by the county to permit the ticketing of
Major Hart, maybe you can elaborate. That money,
evening.
yeah.
I also like to have a proposal to get higher podiums, please. Fund that, possibly, through this thing. No. Yes, a wish list. Well, good evening. Thank you for having me.
The revenue from tickets or from drive-by, that goes where exactly?
Well, I believe it's 70-30. 70 goes back to the company, and 30 would go to the sheriff's office for operational fees. There'd have to be an ordinance that would go through the county commissioners, through Sheriff DeWeese, and all the money the revenue that was generated for the sheriff's office would go back to security initiatives and transportation initiatives directly related to the school board.
I mean, I don't think we see it in the budget as an item, that it's hidden somewhere in there.
Well, we haven't gotten that.
It would have
We're still
to
working
be-
on it.
We haven't gotten that far.
Yeah, okay, I mean, you'd have to separate that
The
out.
70-30 split was the latest proposal from one of the two vendors. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's just an idea, but something we have to iron out, budget-wise.
Any other questions?
I think that's wonderful, because it's something I've been very vocal about for a while, that we need to do something, because there's just so many. I really don't want to see anything happen in the state of Maryland where we have to have a law named after a child. And I think this is a good way, especially to start it in Carroll County.
It's a very serious problem. There have been some horrific incidents across the country that I'm sure we've all seen on the news.
Yeah, and some close calls, I think. I mean, a lot of close calls we see.
Mike, I was really excited to hear about this latest development because of, well, two things. One, Ms. Battaglia just spoke of, any opportunity we can get to better limit or deter or detract from those flybys, and keeping our kids out of harm's way, we want to take advantage of that. But two, if it comes with free GPS units that we don't have to pay for, to accomplish some of the things that you just rattled off as important reasons why, for all sorts of safety and other emergency-related kinds of events, that would certainly serve us well.
Yes, thank you.
So it does say that we're planning a spring 2020 bid for,
For the
so it's going to be a different...
communication capabilities, and then we're going to be pursuing this external flyby program as well.
So what point could we expect the next step or update or iteration of what's happening with the Sheriff's Department in this?
I think when we say spring of 2020 on communications, that's just because we want to see where this other initiative with the sheriff goes. If it goes well and you're on board as well for the GPS portion, then that's no cost to you, and that allows us to work with the capital account, and maybe the more expensive but better option on communication is easier to bring to you. I can't pin Sheriff DeWeese down. I just know he's actively working on moving what he needs to move forward with the commissioners. Obviously, Commissioner Weaver's in that loop of conversation, so I assume Sheriff DeWeese will be discussing an enabling ordinance soon, probably in the beginning of the new year. Is that accurate to say, Major Hart? And once that falls into place, then we can work with Sheriff DeWeese and you on an award of bid to put all of those components in place. So possibly both in the spring, in the March, April timeline, depending on some of the sequence of that. So pretty quickly when we get back from the break.
Well, unfortunately, Mike was able to bring forward something with no cost, and facilities just doesn't get to do that. So, so yes, it's time to look at the Facilities Condition Index. And for some of the folks who haven't been here as we've gone through this, I'll just give some background and try to bring everybody up to speed. We use an application called Capital Forecast. It's a school dude application. We have a number of school dude applications that we use throughout facilities management. The FCI is a calculation of the ratio between systems that have exceeded their useful life versus the total cost of replacement for the entire system, or the entire inventory. And that there's about 30 systems in each school with varying useful lives, and also the total cost of replacement is simply based on the square footage, total square footage we have, and the annual replacement cost. So that's updated annually. What the FCI is a tool that provides building inventory condition data, gives us insight into what our building conditions are. More importantly, it provides us information as we go into the development of the capital plan. They're linked. We have to make sure they're linked for this to be an effective tool. So what Capital Forecast does is allows us to view the past, future trends, develop scenarios based on what our specific conditions and requirements are going forward, so it can inform us, give us some idea of what we ought to be doing as a system as it pertains to our facilities. What the FCI is not is it has nothing to do with the functional aspects of the system. So those aspects are obviously, the administrative functions of the building and whatnot. We have incorporated those functional aspects into the modernization needs analysis, which is included in the Educational Facilities Master Plan. So those two combination give us the what it is, how we prioritize our modernizations. It's also not an estimating tool. So we're not creating budgets with this. We're using these numbers, our broad numbers, to be able to give us an idea overall where we're going as a system in terms of our facility. So again, it's a big picture. It's a trends analysis. That's the kind of way we should be looking. We should be looking at this application, or this number, this FCI. So what can we do with the FCI? And that's what we can do is we can look at how the budgets are impacted by maintaining an FCI, which is part of the strategic plan. We can view the impacts of approved budgets to what happens to the FCI given those approved budgets. And also we can show a funding plan to make improvements to the FCI. What does that look like? So the first graph we have, thank you. The gray bar is the FCI. The blue is this board's request. This is the current plan we have for fiscal year 21 to 26, and then we have the planned replacement cycle from Capital Forecast. Just as some background, the original direction was given in the September of 2018, and at that time, the capital plan for FY19 was already underway, And in September of 2018, we were looking at approval of the FY20 plan. So what you see, the increase in the FCI is because that mandate, that direction wasn't included in those two capital cycles. So it continued to increase, and on January 1st of 2020, we are calculating that it's going to be at 37%, and this FY21 is the first year where the capital plan will include the idea of trying to maintain that 31%, the original 31%, but we are going to be at 37. So that's where we're going to be starting from. The good news is that the current plan is showing that in 4 years we will be back down to about a 31%, somewhat less than 30%. That's because we've got two major projects, large capital investment for Career and Tech and for East. But what happens in the out years, the last 3 years, is we're back to systemic renovations and those sorts of projects. Now, this isn't a slam at any of our funding authorities. This is just the plan we have before us. What is going to happen is, though, if we don't continue to tackle the large modernizations and building replacements, we're going to continue the systems that exceed their useful life are going to continue to outstrip the funding, and we're going to show that increase in the FCI. So the next way we can look at this is the number that always seems to smack everyone in the face, which is what do we need to do to maintain an FCI, and we left this at the 37%. It's because that's where we are, so that's where we'd be going for the next 10 years. $45 million. Again, it's not a number to hang your hat on, but it's certainly a number we can use to have some idea of the ballpark where we'd have to be just to maintain. Now, what you're seeing there, everything you're seeing isn't addressing the backlog. This is just what's going forward that is exceeding its useful life. So the stuff that's in our rear view remains in our rear view. So it's always a number that seems to stagger everyone. I think last December, I think we gave an update, had similar numbers, only it wasn't connected to the strategic plan. It was on its own as a part of the facilities master plan development. The next graph is an idea of what we'd have to do to reduce the FCI down to that, bring it back to the 31%. This is a situation where we'd be taking care of the projects or the systems in front of us and addressing those behind us. And the number increases about another $8 million to be able to tackle something like that. So,
And Mr. Prokop, I did go back and actually pull up the CIP plans from last year and this year, the one that we just recently approved, to kind of look at what our funding request levels were versus those requirements. And for the one that we just approved, we're asking for $59 million in the current year, and then $79 and $52. And those are primarily because of the Career and Tech project and the East Middle project.
That's right.
Right, but that does, which is either in the ballpark of that $53 million number or exceeds it.
Yes.
But that does drop off, our requests do drop off pretty significantly in years 4 and 5. So 28 and 26 million is what's out there right now. So, but that's, we kind of go into that knowing how much money the county has available to commit to school projects, correct?
yes, it's not a, it's a tool, it's a piece of data that we use to try to understand, are we gaining ground, are we losing ground?
Right.
It's not a criticism to those funding authorities. It's not that's not what it's meant to be. But what it does is it still opens your eyes to what is it that we should be going after, what should we be tackling, and that is the major modernizations and replacements. We're going to hit close to 30 systems with a modernization. If we do a systemic, it's one.
Right. So I think this is a really good tool to have in our tool belt, right, in terms of understanding what are the continuous capital needs that we need. You know, we were making statements for years that the condition of our facilities was deteriorating, but we didn't really have a handle on, okay, well, how much do we need to be spending every year in order to not have that continue to happen? And so I think this really, from a planning perspective, this really does help us understand, okay, we're going to have deteriorating facilities if we don't have at least this much capital being infused every year. So from a planning perspective, and I think the commissioners have also found this useful to kind of understand what the planning horizon looks like.
Yeah, we understand that, you have 40 buildings to maintain, and you can't maintain one a year and expect to keep up. You're going to have a level that works for both of us, and that is understood.
That was just one other slide that we, just to give an idea of the individual, the FCI for individual buildings. Not surprisingly, East and Career and Tech are in the worst condition, so that's at least points us that we're heading in the right direction. But the one thing we're going to have to come back to you with, or develop a plan for, is to understand that right now Westminster High and William Winchester are the next modernizations, but the physical condition appears to be pushing some other projects ahead of those. So what we probably are going to come back with is a recommendation to redo our modernization evaluation, including the physical for buildings that were built prior to 1990. Right now we only go up to 1980. It's been 10 years since we've done that, so we've eclipsed a decade. We should probably add those buildings that are in that mix, and then compare them to the indexes in the prioritization that we have. So we're having those discussions now, how we would go about doing that. It's not a small undertaking, and will require the instructional side to be fully involved.
Would that be part of the EFMP document development for next year?
I don't know if we'll have it in time for next year, but it's ultimately, yes, it would be incorporated as a part of the prioritization and modernization prioritization section.
Okay.
And with that, that brings us to the end. We want to thank you for all your thoughtful questions and comments. Just some quick next steps. The May board meeting is the next schedule for Pillar 4. That will be almost entirely Mr. Streaker sitting alone at the table talking about student referral and discipline data under Focus Area 3. But also at that May meeting would be when we believe we would bring back revisions to the focus areas. Some of the things they presented are checked off, they're accomplished, so it would seem they wouldn't remain in your strategic plan. They would be replaced with revised focus area tenets. And so May would be the third focus area, and then any revisions. And by then, hopefully, with everything we talked about tonight, we'll continue to work with Sheriff DeWeese and his folks, and maybe have both awarded bids before you for bus communications and active GPS. And those two things would also be accomplished by the time May rolls around as well.
So, Mr. O'Neill, I want to thank you for this update tonight. Mr. Hart, Major Hart, I'm sorry, thank you for being here this evening. I really appreciate it. And I think we'd like to see more involvement and information coming from the Sheriff's Department as part of this pillar, right? I mean, I think that the fact that, there's SRO, safety, security issues and things that are in here, I would love to have that interaction on an ongoing basis on a Pillar 4 perspective.
I would say by virtue of you saying that, next time in May, Sheriff DeWeese, the Colonel, the Major, Captain Stem, they'll all be here and be happy to do that. And in all seriousness, they couldn't be better partners. Two of you who sit on your Security Advisory Council see them all the time, or see them periodically throughout the year. But I think I could speak for Sheriff DeWeese. He would be pleased to be a more active part of Pillar 4 presentations in the future.
Okay, that would be great.
And I want to say thanks. Again, looking at this on the original agenda, I don't know that it looked like the most exciting topic tonight. but in all seriousness, you guys brought up some great issues about buildings and security and buses, and I mean, it's some things that we really need to look hard at. It truly is. Thank you.
And the commissioners have committed a fair amount of funds in that regard, and Commissioner Weaver, you were asking questions at a prior meeting saying, what is the effectiveness of the SRO program, and I think, so if we make this more of an interactive approach on the Pillar 4 updates, I think we would all benefit from that.
We will cancel Mr. Streaker for May and have the sheriff here. I'm going to spend a lot of time tonight finding out if you're...
He looks happy.
Yeah. I'm going to spend a lot of time tonight finding out if you're complimenting me today. Is that
I'm trying.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and with that, we will move on to Section 5 with the reports, and the first item is the construction report. Dr. Lockard.
Thank you, board members. This is the monthly construction report. I don't have any major updates to report this month, but Mr. Marks, our Supervisor for Construction, is here if you have any questions about the items in the construction report.
Board members, any questions?
I have one.
When we started out with Westminster High School, we started out with like 480,000, and now it's up to 900 and something to fix the facade.
Oh, for the facade question.
Yes.
I thought you were going science rooms.
Oh, no. Oh, no, I just jumped right to that again. So do we have a number on that now? Like, where are we? Because it jumped, so I just want to see where we are.
Yeah.
I don't know. That didn't sound good.
No, we've struggled a little. I think the last meeting, the question came up about we talked about a little bit about the contractor pricing. Now, I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail, but we're not terribly happy with the contractor pricing for the additional areas that we've found. So we're reformulating a plan to continue. I don't recall the exact number, but the 900,000 or so, it was for the A wing, 3 areas on A wing. But we were looking at 2 other areas that were causing us concern.
Correct.
The consultant has developed a plan and given us a report. We're asking the consultant now to help us understand what that should cost, and we're considering different options to move forward with those. And again, without getting into a whole lot of detail, we're trying to develop a plan so that we're not piecemealing this project together, because at first it has grown, and we're trying to kind of take a step back, see how we can proceed forward with it in a way that's more like a typical project that we would have. And so that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Right, because that school was built a long time ago, and I figured if it was at one spot, we're going to work all the way around the building before it's all over.
Well,
and unfortunately, the price is going to go up. So, and I just wanted to just keep an eye on it. That's all.
Yes, well, you're correct. It will continue. The method of construction continued around. The only question we have is it as bad in the sections that we're working on as in others? Can we defer some of that? Should we defer it? And those are the questions we still have to answer.
Thank you.
And Mr. Marks, I did have some questions about the Westminster Science Rooms, but I think those are probably better addressed as part of the bid award.
That's fine.
The award of bids
Sure.
that
No
we'll
problem.
be discussing in a few minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No problem. I'll come back.
Board members, any other questions on the school construction report? No? Okay, then we will move on to 5B, the transportation benchmarking report.
Okay, board members, every year in December, we provide a benchmarking report for our pupil transportation services. So everybody here saw this last year. We're not going to have Mr. Hardesty present the entire report. I did ask him to highlight 4 sections, that being the overall metrics in the fact sheet, the difference between special education transportation costs and regular ed buses, how we compare statewide in terms of formula for bus contracts, and a review of our safety record, which I will say is always remarkable, but even more so this past year. And of course, Mr. Hardesty is here to answer any other questions you might have. Mike?
Good evening again. The benchmarking report, as Dr. Lockard said, is presented annually, was a recommendation about 10 years ago from the Office of Legislative Audits. It's a very, very useful tool for us in terms of evaluating how we're doing versus statewide standards, national standards, and most importantly, letting us look at trends over time and how we do from year to year. So the first slide looks at how we operated as a transportation system last year versus the year before. You can see we traveled a few more miles, close to 5.3 million miles. That includes all of our door-to-door special ed service as well as our regular ed service. The number of eligible students decreased slightly. Again, we do have walking policies for middle and high school. So we do have roughly 1,000 walkers. So those students would not be eligible. Out-of-district students would not be eligible. If we look down at the operating budget, we are very proud of the fact that that increase of $322,805 is only a 1.7% increase over the prior year cost. And that's directly attributable to two things. We did reduce our bus fleet by 3 regular ed buses through efficiencies, and through the hard work of our administrative and supervisory staff in making sure that we are running as efficient as we can. We are going to fewer schools, or I'm sorry, fewer schools this year, and the number of contractors actually decreased by 3. They were 3 very small single bus operator contractors. The age of our fleet at 5.1 years is a little bit less than what we'd expect with a 12-year average bus life. That just means that we replaced a few more buses than what you would expect on an average basis. So our bus fleet overall is a little bit newer than it was last year. So, any questions on that slide? So if we look at the cost of regular ed ridership versus special ed ridership, and this has not changed in terms of the percent difference between regular ed and special ed bus runs.
Mr. Hardesty, I think your slides jumped ahead a couple.
This was one of the highlighted slides that I was...
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we can go back to any of the others. I was just highlighting the slides that Dr. Lockard had mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
So the cost of a regular ed bus route compared to our in-county special needs bus routes, and keep in mind our special needs bus routes have an assistant on board. They are all curb to curb, so we're picking up at the student's home. It's a little more costly operation, obviously. But an in-county special needs bus run is 12 times the cost of a regular ed run, and an out-of-county special needs bus run is 41 times the cost of a regular ed bus run, and 3.4 times greater than an in-county special ed bus run. Yes?
Do we get extra money for the special needs, or do we have to eat that?
We get a sum of $1,000 for every eligible special needs student that has an IEP that requires specialized transportation. So we roughly, that number fluctuates usually between 450 and 500 students each year. So that obviously doesn't come near covering the cost of our special needs, but we do receive that revenue from the state for those eligible special needs students.
Thank you. Wish I wouldn't have asked that question.
Well, I think we had talked about that in prior years. Yes. That's one of we just don't get nearly the proportional share from the state for the additional costs.
Yep. Correct. Correct.
And so with an increasing special needs population, that increases the strain.
Right. We do receive an overall state grant, but it basically only covers about 30% of our total costs. At one time, the state funded pupil transportation at 100%. That was many years ago. And now it's down to, for us, about 30% of our total costs.
Is that something that we should be talking to our delegation about in terms of, I mean, is that a formula-driven thing that we have no chance of changing, or is that something that we could talk about as part of what the delegation could go to Annapolis and be talking about?
It is a formula that was based several years ago, that the state determined a base level of funding that's been increased by CPI each year. But the state had been continually decreasing the amount of support to local LEAs for transportation over time.
Okay.
that may even be an item you take to Mako for all the rural counties to deal with. Good point. I think to the delegation, and we do have a representative on Mako now, so it might be a good thing to be brought up tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great.
This next chart shows how we compare to the other 15. We are one of 16 counties that uses a reimbursement formula for counties that have contractual bus service. And you can see that for this school year, this is actually a chart showing this school year, that for a 5-hour and 80-mile bus route, which is a typical bus route, 5 3/4 hours and 80 miles would probably be more typical. So we show those two in terms of what the cost would be, plugging in the formula figures from each county. And the average for a 5-hour and 80-mile route across the entire state would be $59,018, and we were at $58,886, so very, very close to the statewide average. And the same for the 5 3/4 hour and 80-mile route, where the state average was $62,000, and we were at $61,983, so very, very close to the state average. We are the 7th highest for the 5-hour and the 8th highest for the 5 3/4 hour for this year, for the 16 counties that have this.
Have you been able to get more bus drivers?
Well, we did have 13 prospective applicants in our class this week. So we're really excited about that. The recent push that was made with everyone's assistance to get the word out was very successful. Some of our larger contractors are still struggling, and we're doing our best to, when there are absences, to cover for those. But we're not where we want to be, certainly. But we're a lot better off than many other counties, I can tell you that.
That is very, yes, very true.
And then the last slide, as Dr. Lockard said, we are very proud of our safety record for last year, and that's a tribute certainly to our drivers, our contractors, and our driver instructors, and a lot of good fortune. Because you never know from year to year, but we did have a 22% reduction in the total number of accidents, preventable accidents, 22% reduction in preventable accidents. So we are very, very much ahead of statewide averages in terms of those statistics. So very proud of that effort.
Mr. Harsey, can you remind me what is the difference in the definitions between preventable and non-preventable?
Yes, there's very strict guidelines regarding what is a preventable accident. It's basically any accident where the driver could have had foresight or taken some preventive measure to foresee an accident. So they may not have been charged. Many times they're not charged as having, from the police or whatever, that they didn't receive a citation for the accident. But the accident review committee determined that there was something that the driver should have foreseen. Maybe they could have slowed down sooner, in some way prevented the accident. So they're very strict standards for preventability. And every basic minor incident could be an accident. If a child is jarred from their seat and bumps their head on the floor as the result of a bus going around the turn too fast or hitting a curb, that's an accident. If they strike a tree branch causing damage to the bus, that's an accident. So we're very strict with drivers and contractors to make sure that everything is reported.
And I just want to throw one more thing out, is that I thought it was at our town hall meeting at Westminster High School. Several bus drivers showed up, and Irene really brought something up, and I did not realize this, but she has like 20 pre-Ks, I think that's what she said, and no aides. And I just know when you've got 20 young students on a bus and no supervision, I don't know how the bus driver can drive and worry about Johnny poking somebody's eyes out, and this one's laying across, and this one's sleeping on the bus. So I just think that's something we need to think about. But I know Dr. Lockard stated that you called other counties and they don't have aides either.
Correct.
So I'm just concerned about that because, yeah, in pre-K.
And we've attempted to assist with that specific issue. We have many pre-K, midday pre-K buses out there, and we really have not had many problems with that population. So, and it was, at one point, we did provide assistance on the midday pre-K buses many years ago, but they were taken away as part of a budget reduction measure.
And what's their average ride time for those pre-K students midday there?
We try to make that no more than 1 hour. Now, many are less than that. I'm giving you the worst case. And when it would exceed that, we would put a second bus out. But I would venture to say not many are that long.
Okay.
But we do have, as Ms. Herbert said, we do have as many as 20 students on those buses because those programs are limited to 20. Most would have maybe 10 to 15 students, but they're all curb-to-curb drop-offs.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Kiler?
Back to the safety. And I'm in construction, and we have accidents too. We require a mandatory drug test after an accident. We take discipline depending on the accident, up to and including termination. Do you do that, and how do you differentiate with a driver with a non-preventable or preventable? And in our cases, I know sometimes that determination isn't made, so they go for the drug test automatically. What do you guys do?
We use an acronym FACT, FACT. If there is a fatality, hopefully not, it could be, the other vehicle, hopefully, and not the school bus. If an ambulance is called to the scene, if there's a citation issued to the bus driver, or if either vehicle has to be towed. So that's the FACT. Many times there's an accident of no fault to the driver. A car plows into the back of the bus and has to be towed. That driver still has to go for a drug test.
Mr. Hardesty, could I go back and actually ask a question on one of the slides that we didn't specifically address, but it was one of the first ones, the ridership regular education slide?
Yes.
And I know that we've talked about this in prior years, but when we're looking at, the planned capacity eligible riders versus the actual capacity riders, so the 65%, help me understand. I know that we have to be very careful about the capacity that we plan for, right? Because the possibility is that all of those students could ride the bus, and then you would be overutilized, right? But 65% on an actual basis, I mean, that's been a pretty, we've had a pretty consistently downward trend in that utilization, and I'm curious as to, do we have a feel for how much it would increase ride times or whatever if we increase that percentage? I mean, I'm not sure if I'm thinking about this the right way or not, but if we were increasing that, that would allow us to potentially take a few additional buses.
Well, not necessarily. We have a 3-tier bus system. Obviously, the longer you make a bus route with more stops, you increase your capacity utilization percent. So we could run a bus a half hour and have that 65% figure met. We could run the bus an hour and have it at 100%. But then we're not able possibly to use that bus for subsequent tiers, second and third tier. So it's more efficient to get more bang for the buck per bus than it is to make the bus runs longer. So when we, several years ago, when we implemented the bell time changes to our schools, that enabled us to go from 2 runs per bus, basically, to now 3. And we saved 40 buses by doing that at $1.2 million that particular year, which is an ongoing cost avoidance. So we continue to look at that, though. You're correct. I mean, if ideally, if we were able to keep the same number of buses for the same number of students and have that number increase, that would be great. But I think in order to do that, in order to make that increase substantially, we would have to add buses.
Okay.
So, or go back to, longer bus runs and fewer tiers is what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay, so you can't be as efficient if you could only run 2 bus runs because of the longer ride times?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not as simple as saying we want to increase those utilization percentages, and that might mean a little bit longer ride time for some of the students. That doesn't mean that we could take some of the buses out of the rotation?
No, I think we're operating about as efficiently as we can, we took 3 regular buses out of the fleet for this current year by being a little more efficient with routing. But we're about as slim as we can get right now.
Okay.
We'd like to, well, in some fashion, we'd like to take more because of the driver shortage if possible, but you know, we're operating as efficiently as we can right now.
Okay. Well, that's what I was actually trying to think about. If we were able to take some buses out of the rotation and save that cost, could that get funneled back into a little bit higher salaries for the bus drivers so that we would end up having better service overall? But it sounds like we've kind of optimized this already.
I think we have. The other factor that you alluded to, especially with high schools, we have to overbook the buses. You know, we might have 100 high school students assigned to a particular bus run because there's so many high school students that drive or are involved in extracurricular activities that our experience would show that of those 100 that are eligible and assigned to a bus run, maybe only 40 are going to ride. So we do have to make adjustments with those high school buses during the 3 different athletic seasons during the year for sure, because the ridership is different every season.
Right. So that was the reason for the comment about the ridership being lower in the spring.
Yes.
Is that because of athletic activities?
That could be. I think it's also due to more students becoming eligible to drive at that point
Okay.
of the year.
They're 6 months older,
Yes.
more kids are driving. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. And in terms of the pilot with Synovia, did that give us any insight into how accurate the miles drived, the daily mileage per bus, I think is the...
We were able to verify for those buses exactly what those buses were doing day to day, and it did give us a lot of insight into our own routing system, our computerized routing system, so we could tweak the routes where they needed to be tweaked. You know, ideally what we'd like to do with live GPS is to mirror that with our routing system, work with our contractors to make sure that we agree upon what the correct miles and time would be on a daily basis for the buses. And that system did help us do that for those buses in the pilot.
Okay. Okay. Board members, any other questions? No? Well, thank you, Mr. Hardesty. And to echo some of Ms. Herbert's comments, I mean, the safety results are always stellar for our system, and I just want to thank you for keeping our kids safe, and that's such a very important part of the school system. So
thank you. We certainly owe that to, you know, those comments go to the drivers in particular. Thank you.
Right. All right, and we will move on to Section 6, public participation, and I don't know that we've got any additional blue cards for this evening. What's that, Ms. Deal? All right, well then we will just move on to Section 7, the action items. The first one up, I need a motion for the approval of the personnel items.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, for your approval of personnel action items in your agenda packet, I bring you 1 new hire, 2 release from contract, 2 promotions, 2 leaves of absence, and 1 increase, again, as detailed in the agenda packet.
Board members, any questions? No? Okay, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we need a motion for the approval of personnel appointments.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Lockard.
Okay. Board members, I have 1 approval of appointment to recommend to you. I am recommending Stacy Nolan, who's currently a chemistry teacher at Liberty High School, to acting assistant principal at Liberty High School effective January 8th.
Board members, any comments? No? Okay, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we need a motion for the approval of the award of bids.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kiler. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, I know, Ms. Sivigny, you said you might have some questions for Mr. Mark, so we'll start with the science room renovations, and then we can have some questions answered. The award for the Westminster High School Science Room project, which is part of our CIP, is here. We are recommending you award the base project and one of 2 add alternates to the base bid, and completion of the work by the end of August, this coming August 2020. So I'll stop there and take those questions for Mr. Marks.
Board members, any others before I ask mine? No? Okay. So my question was, so the bid alternate was to complete the project early.
Correct.
And there were, is there anything else, is there additional work associated with it?
There's a little bit more work in planning. They have different efficiencies when they go about an option like this, and a lot of this is bid strategy. That's why you see it as a credit. As an incentive at bid time. A lot of contractors have different capabilities, more or less people, more or less equipment. So they always look at it a little bit differently, and they try to come up with a strategy that helps them, get the project. And so with this particular one, some of these companies realized that they had the forces and the equipment and the planning capabilities, good management, et cetera, to make this happen faster. So they put their effort into making that more efficient, which helped us save money for that. It really helps us with with not having to move around the rooms and swing stage other rooms. The staff there at Westminster High has been terrific through our tough planning stages, trying to figure out how we make these rooms get built. The plan they came up with works. It was just very tough on them. So this saves that effort, gets all of the rooms done this summer. We've already met with the contractor through scope review, went through all the details of how they plan to do this, and they met the criteria and are ready to start this. Big long lead item with any of these jobs like this is casework. So
I'm sorry, what was that?
Casework, all the cabinetry. So being able to order this now allows us to get all of the shop drawings done, the measurements done, the ordering, the procurement, the fabrication, get them delivered and stored and ready for the summer installation.
Okay. I mean, clearly this would be much better if we were able to not have the disruption to, I mean, if they're done before the school year even starts.
Yes.
That puts us in a much better position.
Yes.
I was just curious as to, in some of the additional detail, back in one of the exhibits, the wide variation of what that bid alternate did to the particular bids. I mean, there was one that more than doubled their bid in order to end it early, and others gave us a credit.
Correct.
So I was just trying to understand why such disparity.
It's strategy and its capability, really. I mean, we see that with HVAC bids sometimes, where we maybe have an alternate out there for replacing the entire ceiling. You have efficiencies of taking the whole ceiling down, but it costs you some money. Maybe the ceiling system needs to be replaced. Some of them sometimes will bid a very cheap price, so it gives us an incentive. Hey, we get a ceiling replacement with this. So they look at it, and then they're efficient because they can do the HVAC installation faster. So it's strategy.
Okay. And this overall bid is less than what we had in the CIP request.
Correct.
So that's
We're very
favorable
excited
as
about
well.
that. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And the teachers are excited because they'll get those new rooms faster right in the fall. All of them will get their rooms, and with great technology, just like the Liberty and South Carroll rooms, and they're very excited for their spaces too. So, in fact, I was at Westminster High today, and even mentioned to some of the teachers about having that possibility of having their room done by the fall, and they were just elated with joy that they didn't have to move and have a later start. So
wonderful. Okay. Board members, any other questions on item 1? No? Okay, then we'll move on to item 2. Thank you, Mr. Marks.
No problem.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, item 2 is a visitor management system. This is a piggyback bid for a new visitor management system in our building entrances. We have had an existing visitor management technology in place since 2013, and that current system is due for replacement this coming February. The new system we're proposing offers improved functionality over the current system, including emergency communication tools and the automation of the student reunification process that Mr. Williams was speaking about earlier. The proposed system has already been piloted and reviewed by multiple staff members, including schools.
Okay. Board members, any questions?
I just appreciate seeing those additional features there. And how many schools or facilities was it piloted? How many?
Yeah, I'm going to let John has the background.
Okay.
We piloted the physical equipment here in this lobby, and then we piloted the, or we didn't pilot, we tested and simulated the other features here in a, a computer area, but we brought school-based leaders in, some of the actually I think all the school directors and Cindy McCabe were part of that, and we actually went through some simulated scenarios to see how it performed, and it performed pretty well. Actually, it performed really, really well. We'd be excited to have it.
And what do we pay in the past for things like this?
Well, it's been
5 years?
It's been a while. It's right after Sandy Hook since we first bought the original equipment. So,
Okay.
and Ms. Herbert, honestly, I don't remember that equipment cost. However, the current ongoing annual fee is about $14,000 less. That's not apples to apples because we didn't ask for a new price for the current system, but the existing price is about $14,000 less, or this would cost about $14,000 more. Again, I think that would be less of a difference if we had asked for new pricing on the current system. But, I don't want to disparage one system over another, but this system has functionality that we not only prefer, but some of which isn't available in the other system. And so we would much rather have it. For the sake of one example, the system we have without buying other equipment anyway requires somebody from technology services every time there's an update to go physically to each machine and perform that update. This system you can do, what do you call it, Gary? Push out an update at the network level so that overnight the entire system's current and up to date. And for this system, you want this to be as current and up to date as possible.
And they still have to show their driver's license,
Still have to
and
show
and then they get their badge, and, okay.
All of that's very similar.
All that's the same,
Show your
pretty
license,
much.
scan
Okay,
your
good.
license, get a time-sensitive badge.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. O'Neill, did you say that, so the $14,000 difference, is that the easy lobby is, that we currently have, is less or more expensive than the?
Less.
Then-
The current fiscal year fee, if you did 12 months, would be $14,000 less than what this fee will be.
Okay.
I
But
guess
that's
the point I was
based
trying.
on a
That's on all the
6 year
additional
ago.
functionality. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we didn't ask for new pricing from the other vendor. Maybe it wouldn't. It would be, I presume, less than that. Their fee would probably go up.
Right.
However, even if it didn't, we would be interested in the difference for the increased functionality, which we think has benefits all across the system.
Right. Absolutely. I just wanted to understand the cost differential.
Who are you piggybacking?
Chris, do you know? Oh,
Is that a GSA contract?
yes, sir.
Okay.
I could have looked at the screen and answered that.
I wasn't sure if that was a contract number or that meant.
Yeah, this is, yes, sir, this is piggyback award.
Okay. And it says that, that we would have it in all 40 schools by the end of January. That seems awfully fast.
It's a matter, one of the things, yes, it does, but it's also necessary. But one of the things that helps with that is the fact that it can be, the software-wise and update-wise, it can be administered from one place centrally. You still have to go install put the equipment in every building, but they don't have to sit at each station and upload and download and update and do all of that. They can push it out from central.
Okay.
And whenever you contract with a new vendor, they're on board with the resources necessary to make that happen and do the training as well.
Right. Okay. I mean, obviously, that's a good thing. I was just
Yeah.
surprised to read that we could actually accomplish it that quickly.
Absolutely.
Okay. Board members, anything else on item 2? All right.
Okay, board members, items 3 and 4 are very much related. I'm going to ask Mr. Anderson to just provide a quick overview. regarding Schoology and performance matters.
Sure, absolutely. Good evening. The good news is that we are moving forward with the revision and the modifications to our instructional environment here in Carroll County Public Schools. One of the things I did want to share with everyone is that we've heard a great deal of positive feedback as it relates to the actual dashboard that we've recently implemented. Folks have been on a daily basis being trained and their capacity being built on how to retrieve metrics that's going to assist them in their everyday instruction. We look to continue to do that work. Another component to that from PowerSchool Performance Matters is the opportunity then to begin to look at a platform where we can conduct our ongoing formative assessments that we presently take place here in Carroll County Public Schools. I want to thank Teresa as well as Aaron being on the front end. We've been engaged with them from the beginning, looking at the amount of time that we spend on assessments, the amount of money that we spend on copying of assessments. And what we're trying to do then is obviously through our district assessment committee is to make certain that we continue to stay within that window of time that's appropriate for the amount of time that students are to be assessed. We do feel like with the investment of the assessment platform through PowerSchool Performance Matters that we will provide and bring a certain amount of efficiency now to the classroom and to our teachers and to our administrators, and also in many ways down the road probably be eliminating some of the costs that we've historically seen in regards to doing assessments paper pencil. The other piece that we brought to you this evening is the investment in an LMS, a learning management system. And if you've ever taken a course online, typically you've gone through some sort of platform, some sort of LMS. The benefits of an LMS are many. One is that, number one, we've heard loud and clear from our community that we need to make our curriculum transparent. Presently, right now, we house our curriculum in probably not the most adequate fashion, and so what we want to be able to do is place our curriculum in a place where students, teachers, community members all can see it. We want to be able then to go ahead and build the capacity of our teachers to be able to deliver their lessons. A year ago when I arrived here, Gary Davis was sharing with me some of the utilization that we have with our devices. It's very, very low. And I'm not saying that we need to use our devices for assessment, or I'm not saying that the device is going to be the answer. However, I do believe that the more opportunities that we have for teachers and students to be engaged with technology when it's appropriate is going to position our students to be more successful as they leave our school system. And so one of the things that we also want to look at is content curation. A lot of times now as we move forward, content that we invest in, historically it's been textbooks. We will be in the future investing in common cartridge, ingesting content into our learning management system where we can curate it, teachers can curate it, they can develop their courses around it, they can collaborate with other teachers around the system, and then we can create a true learning environment that's going to benefit our students ultimately. In addition to that, there is a community piece within the LMS where parents and families are able to access ongoing performance of their children on a daily basis. We do have some of that right now, but it's at a whole nother level. And the great thing about these two components that I'm bringing to you this evening is actually, we learned after the fact of vetting these two resources for over a year that Performance Matters PowerSchool will be acquiring Schoology, and so we are very hopeful that that interoperability will be there. Not only the interoperability between the learning management system and our dashboard and analytics, but also with the legacy systems that we presently use right now, such as TAC or our Home Access Center, as well as that Teacher Access Center or Home Access Center. There's very strong interoperability, and I know this for a fact because my wife in Frederick County uses it, between the gradebook of Schoology and then its ability to transfer grades and those types of things into the Teacher Access Center for reporting for student record. So we're very, very excited about this. This is just another complement to the direction that we're heading right now. Both of these things are. I want to commend our instructional technology team. I want to commend Angie McCulloh and Tom Hill for already starting to work with principals. We're engaged with principals looking at formative measures. And truly the purpose of investing in this is so that we don't have to wait till the end of the year to find out how our kids are doing. Not that we do that right now. but it's pretty impressive after a student takes an assessment online and it's automatically, it's very dynamic and it shows up pretty simultaneously into the dashboard, so teachers can see how that's done very quickly, rather than spending, honestly, hours grading assessments.
I think that sounds so beneficial because, again, certainly the instruction can be targeted then based on
I'm glad
the
you brought that
results
up,
of-
Dr. Dorsey, because one of the benefits there is that we can begin to personalize learning,
Yeah.
and I don't mean to overuse that, but honestly, to set up actual groups within the learning management system where families as well as the students are engaged in the material, they can see what's going on, they can interact with the teachers as well, and have that discourse taking place in a collaborative environment. It's pretty powerful. It's going to be a while before we're using it like that, right? It's like buying the brand new Cadillac. You really don't understand all the bells and whistles until a couple years, then you're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I did that. Yeah.
With the year of vetting, I'm confident you're comfortable with it, but what are security issues with this, and how comfortable are you with the security of it?
Yeah, and which one particular? The LMS or in the...
The first one is more of a concern than the second, I think.
Yes, so with Schoology up there right now, the learning management system, presently right now, that's going to be an actual platform where we're going to be, it will be outward facing. So a lot of it, there won't be any student record necessarily on that. It'll be where our content is placed. We're also working with Greg and our virtual learning. We visited a school system where they actually run their virtual learning school with the use of this LMS as well. There's not going to be, we feel pretty confident right now that based on a number of school districts that we've worked with also, or heard from rather, we'll be visiting on Friday as well, that they haven't had any concerns or issues with the security as it relates to availing our content and being able to communicate with our families. But that's something obviously that our technology department takes very seriously. Yeah. Yeah, the second piece is really going to be, once again, it's going to be just like you would do any type of assessment. Right now, I'll use our math assessment as an example at the elementary level. Presently, historically, we've done that paper pencil. Kids sit down with it, they go ahead and complete it, turn it in to the teacher, they grade it, right? The only difference here is that the actual assessment, they'll be able to complete it online, and the teacher, the only person that's going to be able to see that information is the teacher. And still at that point, it's not considered a record of the student. It is an artifact of student work. Where it becomes a record is where it gets into our legacy systems, which will be housed on the enterprise side of business, and that's extremely secure. Gary and I have also been talking about the idea of creating a middle network, and I know he's been working on that as well. We're not quite there yet, but that could be something we see as an instructional network as well, which all our student record and those types of things would be on our enterprise or network rather, and our instructional side would be on our middle grade. We also continue to have our guest network as well. We feel pretty confident about that right now based on just honestly sitting down with other folks and listening. We spend a lot of time doing that.
I got to say, I'm really excited about this from a bunch of different angles. One of them is that it's truly in support of Pillar 1, right? So the academic achievement and really trying to improve, the learning for our students. And second of all, it's something that's been talked about at the Teacher Advisory Council for the last several years. I think these are the type of tools that our teachers and our principals are asking for. And we're going to be able to provide it to them now. And it's going to give teachers more autonomy. It's going to allow us to, better target interventions. The bank of formative assessments that you were talking about is going to be so beneficial for our educators. And I think that this is all, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this one of the things where, we did the zero-based budgeting?
Yes,
and
sir.
this is a strategic initiative where we were able to find the money from the zero-based budgeting to use in this way, right? So it really is a strategic initiative that we're embarking upon in support of Pillar 1.
Yeah, so Chris provided us the guidance of Angie and I to sit down over a period of weeks to look at how dollars were spent historically in regards to 186, our curriculum and instruction budget. And what we've done is we've looked at our strategic plan and basically made sure that our investments, almost conducting a mini audit, if you will, of our investments and understanding there's certain contracts that we have to continue to, comply with. But as we're moving forward, every financial decision based on a zero-based budgeting moving forward now has been directed towards meeting the goals of the strategic plan. And so there is some repurposing of some funds. There is some auditing taking place when we're looking at the utilization of certain instructional applications that we've invested in the past that aren't being used at the level that we felt like they should be used. We're not seeing the return on investment on them, so we're going to decide to go ahead and repurpose those funds to move the system in this direction.
That's outstanding.
Yep.
And I mean, and this is all part of the technology strategy as well, right? I mean,
It's within the
we'll make it
instructional
available.
technology plan. Mhm.
So we'll make it available to folks, but then there's clearly a plan to train and then consume at the
Yeah.
pace that
So-
they need to consume.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up pace. There's a lot of feedback right now, like, listen, this is what we asked for, thank you. But there's a lot coming at us right now, you know, and so the other issue becomes, so how do we build the capacity of folks? Because we can't continue to pull folks out of classrooms to do this work during the day. Because the substitutes becomes an issue because we're trying to find substitutes. We're having a difficult time making sure we can get folks to cover classrooms. So there's no one arguing that this isn't the right direction, but what we're really trying to figure out is how to navigate and be strategic in regards to making sure that folks are being prepared to be able to use this effectively. But again, we don't want to be moving so fast that it's just you're drinking out of a fire hose. But the reality is that these aren't in isolation. They're all interdependent, and they work off one another to get the full solution.
Board members, any other questions?
Jason, I want to thank you and the team. I'm really excited about the tools that are being provided to our system and our community. And like you said, as we build capacity, I think we'll realize the true benefit of availing these to our system.
For our kids, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, board members, any other questions on any of the award of bids before we take the vote? No? All right, then I call for the vote in the award of bids. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we need a motion for the approval of new audit committee members.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey, seconded by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, as the result of 2 recent vacancies due to term expiration on the audit committee and in alignment with board policy CN, internal audit, I'm recommending the appointment of 2 members to your audit committee, and the appointments will be for 2-year terms, Mr. Gary Bauer and Ms. Elizabeth Crooks.
Board members, you may recognize one of those
We
names.
do.
Any questions? No? Okay, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we need a motion for the approval of the agreement with Maryland State Highway Administration for the maintenance of sidewalks and drainage facilities at Westminster High.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kiler. Dr. Lockard.
All right, board members, this agreement is part of a SHA grant-funded project from the county government to construct a sidewalk in front of Westminster High School. The county has kept us informed on the project from the beginning, and this agreement was something we were always anticipating once they began construction, which is scheduled to begin this coming summer of 2020. The agreement before you outlines the maintenance obligations once the project is complete, and it has been reviewed by legal counsel.
Board members, any questions? And are there any additional maintenance resource costs from a maintenance perspective that we would have to bear for this project?
In short, yes. We're going to have to clear the sidewalks. We're going to have to clear any sort of obstructions from the drainage from the roadway, those sorts of things. We don't expect it to be a great deal, but we do have to put some of our folks out there and make sure things are in order. So But we balance that with the desire of the county to extend this walking path that currently, it started, actually this whole project started in 2005 was the first contact we had from them, so it's finally getting to this point. Working with the state can be cumbersome, let's say. So the walkway started at the Y and has made its way all the way up past the community college, past the Robert Moten, up to Kate Wagner Road at the edge of our property, and now they want to bring it past the Career and Tech all the way up to, I believe it's Washington Lane, the intersection there, Washington Lane. So it's, yes, there's additional work that we'll have to undertake, but again, it's a balancing act with the desires for providing safe routes to schools. So.
Okay. So that resource cost would be absorbed within our maintenance facilities.
That's what the
budget.
agreement is saying, yes.
Okay. But so the grant was really just for the construction piece.
Right, which is the county is doing. The county has designed it, planned it, and they'll be doing the installation. We're just going to coordinate with them, and then accept the responsibility for maintaining it.
Okay. Gotcha. Board members, any other questions?
Who would typically maintain this? Personnel from the school that's adjacent to it, or Central County? Who will actually do this? Like snow removal, whatever. The normal snow removal crews countywide, or just from that school?
Yes, well, and with high schools in particular, they have the staffing to be able to manage.
So they'd manage.
Yes, they would manage it. And if there's any need, we would supplement there. But when I say we, I mean just the other maintenance and operations staff. No. It's not the Queen's we.
You almost had your chance this morning, Ray. It just
that's right.
didn't pan out. I know there are a lot of disappointed kids out there this morning.
Sure.
And maybe
Very
teachers
disappointed.
too, right?
I know my kids got up this morning and said, "Is there a delay?" I said, "Get your butts ready."
We were all waiting for it.
Oh, wait, you want to go to the end of June, don't you? I see it.
Cecil and Hartford probably had less snow than we did.
Yeah. 2-hour delay don't make us go to the end of June, though.
This is true.
Right. All right, then with that, I will call for the vote. Board members, all those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we need a motion for the approval of the sale of Liberty High property to the Maryland State Highway Administration for Maryland Route 32 Road Improvement Project.
All right, so, I'm sorry. Need a motion.
A motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kiler.
Okay.
Dr. Lockard.
All right, so board members, this relates to an SHA improvement project at the intersection of Route 32 and Johnsville Road, and I had previously informed you in separate correspondence of the project and that we were granting temporary access to SHA to begin the project timeline. This approval is for the sale of approximately 5,000 square feet of property in fee simple and 675 square feet of property for a revertible easement to construct these road improvements. This portion of the property along Maryland 32 is not utilized for any school purposes and is not anticipated to be needed in the future. And it also has been reviewed for legal sufficiency.
Okay. Board members, any questions? I mean, there's really no real impact to the school system in any way.
Nope.
A lot of money.
You'd think it'd be more.
All right, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we need a motion for the approval of the site for East Middle School Replacement Project.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia. Second by Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, at your November business meeting, the board indicated that site selection for the East Middle School Replacement Project should return for action at the December agenda, this meeting. The board initially received the East Middle School feasibility study in May of 2019. The study included 5 options for addressing the capital needs of the school. Through the course of several business meetings and work sessions, The board narrowed the project options to a replacement school at either the current site or the Friendship Valley Elementary School site, and this is reflected in the board's FY 22 through 26 capital improvement program request, which was approved in October. The board has received public comment on the project, held a public hearing on the CIP, and gathered the significant background information. The approval of the site for the project now returns to the board for decision. Once the board does determine a site, staff will inform both the county and state of the decision. If the site selected is the current location, staff will begin to engage our consultant to work with the Maryland Historic Trust based on prior direction from the board conversations we had previously. So just a little bit of background there as we head into the conversation.
Okay. Board members, comments?
I guess the only comment or question that I have concerns a recent conversation that you said you had with the mayor concerning the water situation. So are there any updates, or you just want to lay out maybe a summary of the conversation, if you could?
Oh, sure. I believe I kind of gave a quick overview at the November board meeting about the discussions that I had with Mayor Dominic. Essentially, so I did meet with him, and he gave a broad overview of the water situation in Westminster. I think that he was very eloquent in the way that he laid out the information, and I think that they actually felt a little bit bad that they caught us by surprise, right, with that announcement about the water. That we weren't made aware of that sooner in the process. I think that there probably are some alternate solutions that we could work out with Westminster, but it would delay the project by several years. In order to go through all the ordinance changes and things like that, it would probably add another 4 to 5 years to the cycle time of the whole project. So at that point, it becomes almost moot. So while I think that, you know, there probably would be a longer-term solution that we could embark upon, it just doesn't benefit the school system because we need a solution quicker than that. I think that there probably were some additional discussions that we could have had. I mean, the situation at Career and Tech with the water, I think, is very similar to this situation. So, but again, it's all driven by the ordinances, and it would take a while to work through all of those, and that's time that we don't necessarily have from the current condition of the East Middle building. From that perspective, I did want to say, like, I was a little bit disappointed about this situation because I think you don't necessarily make the best decisions when you only have one option. Right, and I think that we were having really good discussions, right? Some really good issues were put on the table as we were talking about what are the options that we have, what are the best possible locations, and there were some other issues in the school system that we could have talked through as well with, you know, districting, with feeder patterns, with special needs programs, and all those considerations. So what I'd like to say is that I want to make sure that we continue to have those conversations, right? Just because we're building on the same, you know, if we make the decision to build on the same site, that it's not a status quo discussion, like, okay, we're just gonna redo it in the current location. So I say all that to say I just want to make sure that we have the robust conversations, continue to have those robust conversations about all the other aspects of the project.
So what is the proper procedure then? This just says we have to pick a site. Do we need to modify the motion or amend it to say this is the site we want? What do we do next? We need to pick the site. This paper doesn't. This says we still have a choice. So do we need another motion? Do we need to amend it? We just need to say what we want.
The approval, the motion was approval for the site of the middle school replacement project, right? So
But not which site, correct? Do we need to say which site?
Yes, we do.
Correct? So do we modify the motion, or?
I believe you're correct, Mr. Kiler. It does say, so the title of the item is the approval of the site. although the document doesn't actually say specifically, it doesn't state that we are saying that we would pick the current East Middle site. So we probably should just modify the recommend. So basically, we're saying, we're going to consciously say we're picking the current site.
Right.
And that the EFMP documents, no, I'm sorry, not the EFMP, the CIP documents would need to be amended to say the site has been selected so that the state paperwork can go forward, correct?
We were just believing we would formally notify both the state and county, sort of like a letter and addendum, as an addendum to the CIP that's been submitted. Just for your information, at the board meeting on December 11th, the Board of Ed determined a site. And then as we pick those documents up in the annual cycle, we'll amend them as we go.
Okay. Okay, so board members, any other comments or concerns about choosing the current East Middle site? Ms. Battaglia?
I do. Is there some way to get a guarantee or promise or something from the construction that's going to be happening where the shopping center is, that we're not going to have any water problems, we're not going to run into any type of issues? I think that scares me, that something might come up, or even if they can put a fence up when they're done. Because to me, safety issue. I think that we need to have some type of barrier between that shopping center and the school. Even though there's the stream, I mean...
I don't think we own that property.
No, but that's what I'm saying, is maybe they can put up a barrier, something behind the shopping center. I mean, that's to me. Something kind of like Sheets did for Manchester Elementary. I don't know.
Yeah, that was part of an agreement between the Board of Ed and the corporation that owns Sheets. We don't even own all of that property to the wood line there.
No.
So there's a bit of property that's not ours. You know, if we put a property on our fence, it would be sort of at the bottom of the hill if you think about looking behind the school.
Yeah, because
So I guess the answer is no, we don't have any input on someone else's project there, but there's a good distance from where our property line ends and where that project is happening. As far as the water, we would follow the same process here as with career and tech. So once we get into design and development, we would submit our formal calculations and they would act on that, and ultimately on site plan approval, I think they verbally have told you their position on what they would approve when we get to that point. As far as the water for that other project, that I don't know this, you know, this would be up to them to verify, but that would have been something also part of that project approval. They would have already had determined those allocations and approved that.
I just worry that at some, I don't know, if you got to have two projects going at the same time, I just worry something's going to happen. That scares me.
My guess is that project is probably going to be done a lot sooner than the middle school.
Could be too, yeah.
But to better help or answer your question, Ms. Battaglia, what might be different than what currently exists at West Middle with a shopping center pretty close to West Middle?
Yeah, Carroll Town's another great example. And that Carroll Town's a good example because that was one shopping center that was recently, within the last, 2 or 3 years, raised and a new one built. That's pretty similar to what's happening here. Probably the same distance, more or less, and right to the property line. Our property line in that case.
No, I'm asking that to better understand what maybe some of those concerns might be, so if there is something we can do.
Worried. I mean, trespassing, I don't know, rodents. I guess that's something that I worry about. Making sure you don't have people just crossing through the property to get to the shopping center, or from the shopping center over to the property. So that's what I just worry about.
Okay. That'll be addressed in the site plan. When it's put together, I'm sure.
Right, I think that's
Yeah,
something
I would think
that, as long as...
just like our sites get reviewed by the county and zoning and everybody improved, that one has, we could always ask to go look at the plan if we were interested, but I've got to think stormwater manager, water quality, the whole 9 yards, they're as strict with them as they are with us.
Right.
And we should be safe. But I understand your concern. You see something new popping up next to a school, you worry, but I gotta think that was all taken into
And incorporate a
consideration.
buffer into your plan. Very simple.
Right, I mean, as long as it's not something that we think is insurmountable, it can, we can address that particular issue as part of the site plan, as long as it's not something that would stop us from choosing this site.
Right.
Okay, and I don't think it would be, I don't think it would stop us from choosing this site, but it's definitely an issue that we'd want to address as part of the...
Sure. And that's, I just wanted to confirm what I thought I knew. That last bit of property to the stream or to the wooded, that's county
Yep, county
property.
property.
So if that's something later on in our development we want to work out, we could talk, we could talk, you could talk, or we could talk staff to staff about.
It could be sold to you.
You're upset because you're not getting this middle back, aren't you?
Excuse me. Board members, what is the motion on the floor right now?
The motion on the floor is the approval of the site location for the East Middle Replacement Project.
What site?
But the site, and that's, we need, I believe we need to amend the motion to say that is the current site.
So somebody should do that now.
Okay.
Before you continue the discussion.
Okay, so board members, do I have a motion to amend saying that the site that we're choosing is the East Middle current site location? Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Okay, so we can continue the discussion. If anyone had other comments. No? Okay. Then I will call for the vote as amended to specifically state that we are choosing the current East Middle site location. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you, board members. Okay, and lastly, we need a motion for the ratification of the master agreement between the Board of Education and the Carroll Association of School Employees.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, as you're aware, last year's negotiations resulted in an impasse with our case unit. I'm pleased to share that a settlement was obtained. I'm pleased to share that a settlement was obtained for a new 3-year agreement, through the mediation stage of the impasse process. You have the new tentative agreement before you for ratification. Just to address a few highlights, all of our case employees will now receive their FY20 salary increase retroactive to the first pay period of the fiscal year. We were able to agree to initial terms for incorporation of our former special education hourly personnel who meet the state law definition for positions who are eligible for union representation, and we worked out several language items. CASE has informed us that their members ratified at the end of last week. We appreciate their collaboration, and the new agreement is now ready for you to ratify.
Board members, any questions or comments?
Great.
I would like to say that I'm pleased that we were able to come to this resolution. Ms. Deal, unfortunately, she's not here any longer, but she did state that she was pleased with the resolution as well, and I feel like we got to a win-win situation for everyone, so I think this was a good negotiations process. I'm really glad that we got to this point, and I did want to make sure that we stated that all CASE employees will be getting the raises retroactively back to the beginning of the school year.
Correct. Christmas bonus. Christmas bonus.
Well, January 15th. Get it. Not quite there.
So with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, and with that, we will move on to, there are no discussion items, so we'll move on to unfinished business and new business. And so at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, January 8th, there is a board meeting with citizen participation in the boardroom here at 125 North Court Street in Westminster. And at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, January 22nd, we have the FY21 operating budget hearing here in the boardroom at 125 North Court Street, Westminster. And what isn't on here, but we are having our next joint meeting with the commissioners tomorrow afternoon, so looking forward to that.
Is that here?
Yes. And it is in this boardroom here tomorrow afternoon. So board members, any other items that you'd like to bring up under unfinished business? Ms. Battaglia.
Okay, get them ready.
All right, we got to get
Here we
these
are.
on. Okay.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I'm the only one that wore the ugly sweater. And
All right,
jingling
I don't know how to make
sweating
mine
to death.
flash. All right.
Like, I am like, oh my God.
Oh, got it,
yeah,
got
yeah,
it.
you got it.
Got it.
Right.
And I apologize for not wearing an ugly sweater tonight. I actually couldn't find one, so I tried to go with festive. Come on, you got to put it on.
Come
Okay,
on,
how about
Dr.
here,
Lockard.
Oh,
yeah. He did it.
There we go. All right.
Donna, you're turning him.
All right, so I know board members, we all had a little bit of comments that we made during our board correspondence, but just want to say one last time, we wish everyone a wonderful holiday season, and hope you get to spend some time with your loved ones. And please be safe and healthy. All right. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Ms. Herbert.
I'll second it.
Second by Dr. Dorsey. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you. Kenny, you look good in those.